subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
Hello and welcome to Health Live at Seniors Today. We are delighted to have here with us once again Dr. Mukesh Batra. Dr. Mukesh Batra is, as we all know, a celebrated homeopath. He's a pioneer of modern homeopathy in India. He brought standardization and modern technology to a largely informal homeopathy practice. Dr. Batra received the Padma Shri for his contribution to the field, and he has over 225 clinics across 150 cities in 7 countries, which is across the world. And his practice has impacted the lives of over 15 lakh people. Last year, he authored the very popular book, The Nation's Homeopath, how Dr. Batra's became the world's largest chain of homeopathy clinics. And I'm told it's been on the national bestseller list for over 4 months. A play on his life has been also performed by the well-known theatre person, Mr. Om Katare. A prolific speaker, having addressed multiple forums in over 20 countries, Dr. Batra has written regular columns in multiple international and national newspapers and magazines. I had once, in his many years back, published him in Midday. He has had some of the longest running television shows on homeopathy and health on Doordarshan and Zee TV in India and Europe. He has authored bestseller books on homeopathy in multiple editions and languages. Dr. Batra has shared his experience, research, and innovative work through a social media series, Good Health and Homeopathy, that has touched over 30 million lives. We all know about Dr. Batra, but he has made immense contribution to society through the Positive Health Foundation. Not only does he give a fair amount of his time and use his talents, be it singing or photography, to enrich the lives of around him, but to realize his dreams of a Bimari Mukt Bharat. Okay. I repeat, a Bimari Mukt Bharat. Dr. Batra runs over 190 free clinics that provide lifetime free medicines for the needy. During the pandemic, I'm aware he distributed over 1 crore doses, homeopathy doses. These included several lakh free doses to the Maharashtra police personnel and their families, and sponsored many lakh doses across through the NGO ARZU for distribution in containment areas, and 14 lakh doses to the Rotary Club of Bombay. We are delighted to have you with us, Dr. Batra. I remember, we had a session by you on August 29, 2020. So it's been almost 2 years since then. We all know your singing talent. You have these performances. I'm going to ask you to start with a question in a song form. हाल कैसा है डॉक्टर का?
हाल कैसा है जनाब का? क्या ख्याल है आपका? कुछ तो फिसल गए, कुछ तो मचल गए, हा हा हा. So I think that's the answer. But I remember one, बलराज सानी की एक बहुत अच्छी पिक्चर आई थी, बहुत पुरानी, और मुझे उसके कुछ गीत याद आ रहे हैं. ए मेरी जोर रजबी तुझे मालूम नहीं, तू अभी तक है हंसी और मैं जवान, तुझ पे कुर्बान मेरी जान, तुझ पे कुर्बान मेरी जान. So I think you're as young as you think you are, and it's always good to start a program and start life and continue life with always being in love.
Absolutely. And we all know that you celebrated your 70th recently, but you look so young and radiant. The glow on your face shows that you are and the positivity that you generate is amazing. So really happy that you're here. Doctor, we always ask we ask doctors who come here to make presentations or to talk about things, but I just want to request you to speak a little about homeopathy and what does it mean for seniors. We often ask doctors about specialists who come in over here to talk about alternative medicine, but they say we don't know really very much about it. They don't know whether there's enough research being done. After all, in allopathy, there's a fair amount of research that has happened. I wouldn't say trial and error, but research has happened, and there is proof of all of that. So just a few opening remarks on homeopathy, and is it a lot of mumbo jumbo? Those white pills that people get, which are sweet and people enjoy having them. Okay, keep some space between coffee and the medicines, etc., etc. But tell us more about the science behind homeopathy.
Yeah, so let me start with a story. The story goes back to Germany about 250 years ago, when an MD medical doctor, that in the very, very few, was an MD doctor from the Leipzig University in Germany, gave up his practice and discovered a new science which he called homeopathy. Homeopathy basically is a system of medicine that is based on likes cures likes. It's very, very similar to the vaccine therapy. Today, we all know what vaccination is. What do you do in vaccination? You're putting a little bit of the kind of, if I may use the word germ or the bacteria into the body, or the virus into the body, and the body reacts with it in an opposite direction and builds antibodies. It then gives you natural immunity against that particular virus. In homeopathy, we do exactly the same thing, but with natural plants and with natural substances. So something that causes in a healthy human being will cure in a sick man. So for example, if I'm cutting onions, and while cutting onions, I start getting watering of the eyes, running of the nose. If I have a patient who has watering of the eyes and running of the nose, similar symptoms, I can use a medicine prepared from onions to cure him of his problem. So this is just basically the kind of fundamental on which homeopathy is based. Another interesting story is that how did it come to India? So, it came to India through the land of, through the court of Maharaja Ranjit Singh in Punjab. And he had a problem with his voice box. He had paralysis of the voice box. He couldn't speak. And so he had heard that there was one of Hahnemann's followers who was an Austrian. And so he called for him to treat him. With one dose of homeopathic medicine, he was able to actually get his voice back. And he then asked him to stay back. Now, this is how then homeopathy then spread to India. So today, homeopathy is being practiced in over 80 countries of the world. There are over 50 crore people who regularly use homeopathy, out of which 10 crore are in India. India is the largest, not the largest market. France is the largest market for homeopathy in the world. But India has the largest number of homeopathic doctors, almost 300,000, and the largest number of homeopathic followers, which is about 10 crores in India, follow homeopathy on a regular basis. So it's actually one of the fastest growing medicines in the world, systems of medicine in the world. It's growing 25% back to back for the last 5 years versus pharma, which is growing 10%. And according to World Health Organization, it's already the second largest system of medicine in the world. So this gives you a little, brief that of how homeopathy now is being practiced all over. It's part of national health services. It's supported by insurance companies. We are in Dubai for the last 15 years. There are almost 5 to 8 insurance companies. We kind of pick up the bill of patients when they come for homeopathic treatment. So a lot has happened, in the last few decades in favor of homeopathy. The government started a separate Ayush ministry, which is very specific to Ayurveda, homeopathy, yoga, Unani, etc. And that also has contributed a lot to the popularization of homeopathy in India. So let me just say this, that it is a very fast-growing system of medicine. It's been accepted, particularly because it's safe, it has no side effects, and people are now moving away from iatrogenic disorders, which are, drug-induced disorders, and a lot of problems which come up because of using chemical drugs, and a lot of them unprescribed because people are self-prescribing, and Dr. Google has now become a doctor, among other things. So, there's a need, therefore, for a safe and a scientific system of medicine, and a holistic system of medicine, and homeopathy fills that need. Coming back to your question of small white pills and are they innocuous looking, and what happens really is, I think, yes, people call us candy doctors, especially kids, because it's a very palatable system of medicine. If you can have sweets and then become all right, nothing like it. It's not an invasive system of medicine, which is what makes it also even happier, because the mode of transmission is so lovely, and the treatments are so pleasant, I would say. And I'm saying the experience of going to a homeopathic doctor is very special, because homeopathic doctor looks at you in his entirety. So the first time you go, it probably, take an hour understanding your history, the psychological, your background, your childhood, whether you have any conflict at work, at home, and try to analyze all of that. So it's a very, very, very painstaking, deep understanding of a human being, which happens when you visit a homeopath. So, and then coming back to the last part of your question is that, yes, there is a lot of research that has been done in homeopathy. It's being continuously done. These are being organized mainly by governments all across the world and by organizations. There are lots of double-blind trials which have been conducted. And of course, I always say that homeopathy is experiential medicine. So, millions of people who experienced it, who got all right, and we now have clinical evidence to show that medicine really works. So, for example, if you're treating a patient of polycystic ovaries, a lady, and you then do an ultrasound and you find that there's an ovary of this size, which has grown, and then after 6 months, you do another sonography and you find that it's reduced and gone back to normal. So there's clinical evidence to show that it works now. And there's plenty of it. As a matter of fact, last year, one of the books that I took out on World Homeopathy Day, which is 10th of April, which was the birth of our founder, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, was a compilation of about 700 cases with all the clinical evidence, which we then distributed free to all the educational institutions across the country. So there's a lot of work happening and it continues to happen.
Amazing. While even with allopathic drugs, you can get them, you can buy it off any chemist or druggist without a prescription. But the general sentiment is that you can, there are, while there may be, a few thousand registered medical practitioners of homeopaths, but there are
few hundred thousands.
There are a few 100,000, but there are perhaps lakhs. There are millions of people who are home homeopaths. Where people know, okay, chalo, ek arnica le lo, or take some, whatever. Is that a worry? Is that a concern for you that there are, so many homegrown doctors across?
So let me just say this, that it's a plus and a minus. Number one is, in the last many, many years now, India has, legislated that unless you're university associated, passed, you've done a 5.5-year course in homeopathy, medicine, surgery, gynec, all of that, you are not allowed to practice homeopathy. You're not a recognized doctor, which means you can be sued legally. So homeopathic practice in India is only by qualified homeopaths. That's point number one, which is a very good thing. Point number two is that because homeopathy is so easy to follow, and it's divided into two parts. One part is the constitutional part, where you go for chronic ailments, where you need to understand the person's personality and so on and so forth. And the other is like a home kit. It's like, like your home kitchen medicine that you had, Dadi Ma ke nuske, that kind of a thing. And that's something which I think anybody can practice. And because it is safe, it's easy to do it. And which is why I wrote this last book of mine, common ailments, simple remedies for all ages. And I try to, show this, that at different parts of life, right from the time a child is born till old age, how homeopathy can help in all phases of a human life. So it's kind of, because people tend to think, they say, oh, homeopathy is only good for such and such. It only works in this problem. It doesn't work everywhere else. But I've tried to show that it's holistic, and it actually, you can treat through homeopathy across different phases of human life. And therefore, I'm saying, if it's a problem that you can treat at home, if it's a simple problem, as long as you know where to draw the line, you can self-treat yourself, because you can save a lot of angst for the family. You can save a lot of anxiety for family members. You can save a lot of money by being rushed into institutions, and you can save the institutions for more serious ailments. The research that I did many years ago also showed that the people who really need healthcare are not getting it. And the people who don't need healthcare are actually pushing the boundaries to get admitted. So you found, for example, that, I've seen many patients, for example, they have gas and they get pain in the chest and they want to be admitted to ICU and they want to rush and go to the hospital. But because of that, the bed for a needy person is not available. So I think there's a plus to it. If there are a lot of, common ailments, small problems that you can treat at home easily, no side effects, low cost, no need to rush to the hospital, and you can nip the disease in the bud, it's a strong plus.
Doctor,
but having done that, of course, you should know where to draw the line.
Doctor, I want to ask you this question, and I'm sorry to ask you a very pointed question on this. But 2 years back, when COVID was raging, there were a lot of questions. There were a lot of suggestions made about how homeopathy can cure or can ensure that there was, you will not get COVID.
Right.
But in fact, a very well-known industry leader was also propagating it, and perhaps many more were doing it. But people did get COVID despite that. In fact, one of the industry leaders who got it in his company, there were quite a few people who were down with it. So so while there is a lot of a lot of people who are talking about it, but clearly it wasn't the cure, wasn't giving the appropriate cure.
No. So it's a very good question and very relevant, and I'm very happy to answer it. So let me go back in history, and let me give you actual figures of how it works in epidemics. Okay, I'm not going to the theory of how it works because that's complicated, but there's a theory and there's rationale behind it, which was laid down by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann during his time. So for time immemorial, homeopathy has been working very, very well in the case of epidemic. It's just that we're not using it enough. Okay, this is the first time when we actually use it on a mass level. And I'll come back to that. So if you go back to the Spanish flu, which is about 100 years ago, when whatever, and that is of course a pre-antibiotic era, so it's not a very fair comparison, but the mortality rate was 30%. And with patients who took homeopathic medicine, it was down to 3%. Now that's the difference. And this has all been, put in figures and in reports. So this is not what I'm saying. It's already there. This is past history. Similarly, in Cuba, there was another epidemic that happened. And again, homeopathic medicine was given over there by the government. And there was a great response over there. I mean, a lot of people didn't get it. Similarly, Andhra Pradesh government many years ago, when there was Japanese encephalitis happening, they used a homeopathic medicine called belladonna. They distributed 1 million doses of belladonna, not a single child, but Japanese encephalitis. Versus this, other states have spent tons of money, crores of rupees, to prevent it. So there is a background internationally as well, where homeopathy is actually successfully used in epidemics. Now, let me come back to the question of, after taking homeopathic medicine, why is it that some people still got COVID? I'm saying my answer to that is two. Point number one is, people who've taken a vaccine even 3 times over still get COVID. Is it not?
Absolutely, I agree.
So therefore, to blame homeopathy and say that I took homeopathy and I didn't get it, so it's a different concept altogether. So similarly, I'm saying it does build up your immunity. It's very specific against a particular kind of epidemic. It helps a lot. But let me say this, 2 things. Point number one is that viruses evolve and they become resistant. And therefore, what happens is that today, if you've got a vaccine which is very, very, very good against a particular virus, but it then evolves and then it becomes Omicron. And when it becomes Omicron, then the vaccine is not so effective. And therefore, you do get infected, and therefore you do get COVID, but it's not so serious. You don't need hospitalization. And I think this is the same thing with homeopathy as well. So number one is that, the viruses keep on evolving, and therefore the same vaccine does not work. And it's the same with homeopathy. Second thing, very important, is that, ultimately, it's a balance between 2 things. One is the virulence of the virus, and the other is the resistance of the host. So what is your level of immunity? That is what is important. And what is the strength of the virus? So supposing I'm very strong, I'm very fit, I do my 10,000 steps every day, I'm very good with my diet, I sleep here, all of that. But tomorrow, if there's a virus which is very, very strong, it will also affect me. Even I will fall sick. Because that's the virulence of the virus. On the other hand, if my immunity is low, even if I have a mild virus, I will still fall sick. Have you ever wondered why, if in the room there are 100 people who have a cold, in a theater, for example, and when they go out, how is it that only 10 people get cold? Who are the 10 people who get cold? Those who have low immunity. So, and immunity has been a buzzword during COVID. Everybody's talking about how do you raise immunity. So if your immunity is good, and immunity is not built in a day, it's built over a period of time. So if your immunity is good, it's your Suraksha Chakra. Then whatever comes and attacks you, you'll be protected. If your immunity is low, then no matter what you do, you're still going to fall sick. So I think this is the philosophy behind homeopathy. And the answer is that when you have a low-cost option, why should you not try it?
Great.
I mean, it's better than not trying anything at all. I'm saying we have given about 2 crore doses free to people during COVID. I am very sure that some of them must have developed COVID as well, but it must have been milder. And a lot thereafter now research has been done actually to actually show the efficacy of homeopathy, preventive, early stages, and post-COVID. And there are clinical trials which are being done on all of this.
Great. Thank you, Doctor. We've received around 30 odd questions that have come in. There are more questions coming in. I do, of course, know that we will not be able to answer specific questions of people because, this is not really a teleconsult and you will need to examine the patient carefully, clinically, whatever. But just a question for you, Doctor, is there any overall guidance that you would like to give? You mentioned about immunity, but is there any overall guidance that you would like to give to senior citizens, people above the age of 60, as to what they should do in the homeopathic way of life? First, let me ask you, is it homeopathy or homeopathy?
Well, in India, they say homeopathy, but actually the pronunciation is homeopathy.
Homeopathy, okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to change myself. Correct.
Yeah.
So, what is the right?
That depends on whether you speak British English or Indian English.
Right. I'm happy with Indian English, but I would still like to use the right pronunciation. So, what is the right? What is the appropriate advice for people above 60 from the homeopathic way of treatment? What should they be doing?
As far as health and medicine is concerned, it has nothing to do with age. It's something which you do when you start young. So it's not that just because you're 60 plus or you're a senior citizen or you're a senior, then you need to do something special. Yes, there is something extra that you need to do, but the fundamentals of health are the same. What are they? First of all, let us all understand that self is always self-governed. Health is always self-governed. It cannot be governed. This is the first mistake that everybody thinks. If as a senior citizen, I am not going to look after myself, nobody's going to look after me. I mean, you can go to the best doctor in the world. Okay. I mean, I've seen so many, mothers coming to me and saying, my child doesn't listen to me. He's falling sick all the time. Doctor, why don't you tell him not to eat ice cream, not to have lollipops? I'm saying it's your child. If you can't say it, I mean, what do you want me to do? I mean, you can't govern health. It has to be self-governed. So the first thing is that awareness of good health is what you have to build over the years. And when you are 60, 70, 80, 90, God willing, even more than 100, what really works well then is your foundation. Because whatever you've done over the years is something that you carry forward. And that's why it's very important that if you're really talking about good health for seniors, you're talking about good health at a young age as well. It's not separate. The two are not separate. What are the few fundamental things that I believe that we should all do? Point number one is sleep well. Sleep is grossly underrated. When I did research on my book, the book that I wrote before COVID, which was 13 Steps to Bloody Good Health with, the famed author Ashwin Sanghi, I co-authored that book. And research that I did, the first chapter over there that I put was on sleep. Why? Because I said, number one is, if people could go through the first chapter and not sleep through the book, then I know I've written a good book, And secondly, I actually rehearsed and found seriously that more than 90% of India is sleep deprived. And this has become much, much more post-COVID, during COVID, because we've had irregular, timelines, and we don't understand that sleep is at a resting stage. It is healing the body. Your body is being rejuvenated every time you sleep well. And so when we don't sleep well in terms of hours and in terms of the quality of sleep, and this is individualistic. There are people I know who sleep 5 hours a day and they're very cheerful, very alert and very happy. And there are others who sleep 9-10 hours a day and they're drowsy all the time. So a lot of it depends on the quality of sleep that you have. But sleep is the first thing. And now, sleep again is cultivated. It's a matter of discipline. That you have to, your body has a rhythm, which is now called the circadian rhythm. And people have got Nobel Prizes for it as well. But it has a rhythm. So if you upset that rhythm, then you disturb your sleep pattern. So the first thing is get good sleep. Sleep well. Second thing is eat well. We are what we eat. And they say food is medicine. It truly is. So today we're having the wrong kind of diet because we're all eating out of a can. We're eating on a sandwich when on the run while we're walking. That whole idea of, one of the big things that came across in COVID time as well was to say have a home cooked meal. So the value of a home cooked meal, they always said that mother's cooking is best. I'm not sure how many mothers really knew how to cook, but we were so used to the taste buds of our mothers that we always felt that that's the best kind of food that we could have. But the strength that comes from cooking home food and from eating food together on a table together. and not with your mobile phone on. A family meal should be a family meal. I'm saying I have a rule in my family: when you come to the dining table, we only have one meal together. And when we have that one meal together, leave your mobile phone outside. Don't answer calls, don't put it on the table. Enjoy your meal. Okay, you need to, and enjoy the conversation that comes post-meal. So post-dinner chatting, I believe, is very important. It holds the family together. And eating on the table rather than standing, running, walking, and eating fast food at a fast pace actually makes you sick. So chew your food.
Yeah.
So that's the second point. I'll just finish my 3-4 points that we can come back to.
Sure.
So sleep well, eat well. Third, move well. Now this is particularly also good for seniors, because our mobility will always get affected as we grow older.
Right.
It's a natural phenomenon. So what effort are we putting to make sure that we do something? I'm not talking about going to the gym, hitting out there, working out. No, but are we moving? It's now said that smoking is sitting is the new smoking, is what they say. So it causes that much of damage. So at least can we just get up and move a little bit, not sit at one position for a long time? So, and one of the biggest challenges, I'm saying, you've seen, the head of a country today, and she's 96 or whatever. And what are the issues that she has? No other health issues, but mobility. And because of mobility, now the new prime minister has to go to another castle in Scotland to kind of shake the hand over there, rather than it being done in London. So I'm saying, why? Because there are mobility issues. So as you grow older, your issues of mobility will keep increasing. Therefore, if you keep kind of oiling your joints, your machinery, by moving it, it'll help you a lot. And the last point that I want to give is, of course, think well. Very, very important that you keep your brain occupied. A lot of people, especially in old age, we are so active, and then suddenly we have nothing to do. And there is this lack of intellectual stimulation, which actually then slows you down and makes you older much before your age.
Right. Thank you, doctor. Any homeopathic medicines that one should have in terms of just to be good, immunity, good health, stomach in order, all of that?
No, so there are separate ones for separate issues, but there's not a Ramban for staying young, and I mean, everything, aging is a normal process. Everything in this world is finite. We need to understand that. And as we grow older, then how do you deal with age? How do you respond to it? How do you physically and emotionally deal with it is really what the challenge is. And I think homeopathy helps you constitutionally. It helps you also in your psychological makeup. It helps you also physically and emotionally to deal with old age. Now, for that, you have to consult a homeopathic doctor in person.
Right. Doctor, we have quite a few questions that have come in. I'll take one by one in case, most of these are specific, but still you could give general responses. One is, our first question is from Mr. Brij Duggal, who's 78. He's had diabetes for the last 20 years. He's on insulin and tablets. His HbA1c is currently 7.5. What his question is it possible to treat him with homeopathy? And he says there's no clinic in Aurangabad. His wife and him, he are suffering from severe backache and pain in the back. Can homeopathy treatment remove the pain?
Right. So first, the easy answer. The answer is that we do have a clinic in Aurangabad. So that's the easy way to, that's the easy answer to say yes to that. As far as backache is concerned and mobility problems are concerned, again, it depends on what is the nature of the backache. You can have a backache because of a canal stenosis, which is a very severe problem. Or you can have a backache because of prolapsed disc, or you can just have a backache because of posture, bad posture. You can even have backache because of psychological stress. So there are many, many reasons for backache. But by and large, if it's not a structural reason, it can be treated through homeopathy. So that's my answer to the second question. Answer to his first question about diabetes. So, there are two kinds of diabetes. One is type A and type B, type 2. Now, the type 2 is really what is more, I would say lifestyle related. And type 1 is something that happens when the insulin doesn't function enough, or not enough insulin is produced. My answer to the question is this, that in type 2 diabetes, when you're on oral anti-diabetic medicine. If you add homeopathy to it, the result is faster, quicker, better. You get better control of sugar. Now, a kind of a research was done in Athens many years ago, which said that with an oral anti-diabetic medicine alone, 47% of patients got control of sugar. When homeopathy was added to it, the percentage went up to 97%. So there was a 50% incremental benefit by adding homeopathy to your treatment if you're a diabetic, provided you're not insulin dependent. If you're insulin dependent, then I'm sorry that then the body need for insulin keeps going up and you get used to it. So really, we don't have much of an answer there.
Thank you. We have a question from Katie Daganchi. She says, Doctor, I suffer from a white coat syndrome and my BP and pulse shoots up before going to a doctor's clinic, and once home, my BP and pulse are normal. My husband has occasional constipation. Are there any pills that you can recommend for our problems?
I mean, just change the color of your doctor's coat. That's why I'm wearing a colorful shirt. I mean, I knew there will be some people like that in the audience. Among the 500 people you got logging in today, there'll be always somebody who has a white coat hypertension. It's just an anxiety syndrome. I mean, you can actually take a homeopathic medicine, which is, an anti-anxiety homeopathic medicine, like Califos, which can help you before you go to the doctor. And I can assure you that your blood pressure will come normal. So don't worry about it. And anyway, it's transient. There's nothing to worry about. It's just anxiety based. That's it. And it's temporary. So there's no need to worry.
Doctor, we have a question from Mr. Bharat Mehta, who's 66. He says, I've gone through angioplasty with one stent in September 2020. Can you recommend homeopathy medicine to stop further blockage in the heart? That's one question. The second question is there a homeopathic cure for not getting a heart disease?
So not getting a heart disease is, nobody can guarantee that. I've seen people whose cardiogram is absolutely normal, everything's okay. They step out of the hospital and then they get a heart attack and they die just there. So I'm saying it's very difficult to predict that. It really depends on what you built up over a lifestyle. What is your lifestyle like? And how healthy are you? How careful are you? And again, it's a genetic factor as well. So it's what you eat, it's how stressed out you are, and it's a lot of has to do with genes. You see a lot of young people also getting heart attacks and dying in spite of having the best kind of lifestyle. So it's really not in your control. As far as a kind of a heart tonic is concerned, yes, there's a homeopathic medicine called Crataegus, which you can use, a mother tincture. You can take 10 drops of it in half a cup of water twice a day. It's a very, very good heart tonic. So over a period of time, it will help your heart to function better.
Thank you. We have an urgent question from somebody, anonymous attendee, who says this is about somebody who's in Uttar Pradesh and he's not able to get the medicines that he has been advised. So he wants substitutes. The medicines are alpha-alpha tonic and passiflora O and Novosin and Califos 6X.
Yeah.
So the person is in his village and he's not, if these are not available, what are the substitute medicines the person can take?
They're all available actually. I'm saying all one has to do is to get into any nearby homeopathic pharmacy. And today, a lot of these medicines are available online as well. So I'm sure that they will reach him somewhere nearby. Because if he can't get it, he can't get it anywhere. Because if he's in a small village where there's no courier service, today everything is connected very well, then obviously he can't get any medicine, whether it's homeopathy, allopathy, nothing will reach him. But if there is a service of delivery and the last mile delivery is there, he can easily get medicine from anywhere. All big cities have got pharmacies, homeopathic pharmacies, which have all the medicine that you name. They're all easily available. And a lot of them are now available online as well. So they can be couriered to you in the next 24 hours.
It's a no-brainer question, but somebody's asked, do you have clinics in Pune? Of course, if you have in Aurangabad, I'm sure you have it in Pune as well.
Yes, I think we have we are around 6 clinics in Pune, almost in every part of Pune. So yes, plenty of them there.
There's a question from Mr. Trilokinath Dubey, who says, what is the difference between mother tincture concentration and white round balls concentration?
Okay, complicated answer, but let me answer it as simply as I can. So when you talk about a mother tincture, it's just the extract. It's what you call in Ayurveda the erk. Okay, homeopathic medicine, let's say, are made from plants. 70% are made from plants. So you take a plant, let's say a flower or a plant, and you crush it. When you crush it, you get the juice. So that pure juice that you get is called the mother tincture. So mother tincture is the raw form and the pure form and the, I won't use the word unedited, but the unpotentized form, as we say, and I'll explain that a little later, of homeopathic medicines. So it's just the extraction of the plant or the source from where you get the medicine. Now, when you talk about pills, what really happens is then you take 1 drop of that solution that you've taken out, you add 98 drops of alcohol to it and you shake it up. And you then get power 1. You then take 1 drop of that and you then again shake it up. Then you get power 2. Now, this is done hundreds and thousands of times. And that is a process called potentization. This is still very controversial because it's really less is more. So the lesser the original substance is, the stronger, the more powerful the medicine gets. And then this medicine ultimately then is just put into white round balls, which is just a source of because it's porous. So it holds the alcohol for almost 10 years, 15 years without getting bad. And it just holds up the original medicine for a long time. But today, homeopathic medicines are given also as injectables. They're given as nasal sprays. They're given also in capsules, in tablets. So they're all different forms of taking homeopathic medicines today. It's not just one form of sweet pills.
Right. Thank you. There's a question from somebody who's saying, my wife is losing hair very fast for the last few days. She's 70. She has, can you suggest any medicine for that? This is from Mr. Dilip Kumar Desai.
So, very, very difficult. But first of all, I'm saying if she's using for a few days, you shouldn't worry about it. Because, hair loss is normal. And, people who lose even 40, 50 hair every day, it grows back again. And hair has 3 cycles. It has a cycle of growth, it's a cycle of resting, it's a cycle of regrowth. And this whole cycle takes 3 years. Okay. So after a particular age, the hair growth cycle slows down and the hair falling cycle increases, which is why progressively over a period of time, we actually lose hair and our hair becomes thinner. Having said that, hair loss is not a cosmetic problem, it's a medical problem. There are more than 40 different medical problems why hair gets lost. Now in women, it is 3, commonest 3. Number 1 is anemia. Number 2 is thyroid. And number 3 is polycystic ovaries. Now, obviously at her age, we are still looking at the first 2. So first thing is you'll have to do a ferritin test to check whether she's actually anemic or not. If it is, you increase the iron in the food, and within 3 months' time, she'll get back to normal and she'll get the hair back as well. Similarly, if she has a thyroid problem, it can be treated through homeopathic medicine as well. So you really need to get to the root of the cause. But in your specific case, 70 years, few days hair loss, just write it. Don't do anything about it. Leave it.
Thank you. There's an anonymous question which says, is aconite 200 okay for a heart problem?
No, really. No. I'm saying nothing is okay for, like I said, you need to actually, need to visit a doctor and get it done, because you just can't take medicine just like this for problems which can cause you a severe land you up to hospital or ICU.
Absolutely, I would strongly advise people to to seek medical advice. The advice that is given in sessions like these is just advisory and indicators. It's best to visit a doctor, get a clinical
evaluation,
examination, and then only go ahead and take whatever. There's somebody who's asked us to repeat some tonic that we had mentioned. So this video, the edited video, will be on seniorstoday.in on Monday, and you can watch it along with the takeaways that is written by a medical practitioner. Is there any medicine for thyroid for women? There's a question.
Yes, there is. Again, thyroid is of 2 types, hypo and hyper. So you can get hypo, which is slow thyroid and not functioning well, and one is a hyperactive thyroid. Both have different symptoms altogether. In hypo, you put on weight. In hyper, you lose weight. And somewhere you get tremors. So lots of different symptoms. So depending on what type of thyroid problem you have, it can be treated. If you're already on a thyroid medication, you must continue with it. You cannot stop it suddenly, and you have to taper it off gradually and take homeopathic medicine with it. And then ultimately then be free of all medication and make sure that your thyroid levels are normal.
Right. Doctor, we have a question from Harish who says, The last 2-3 years have taken a toll on me. I'm 61, but I feel 81. I've lost dear friends and family, and I feel depressed and anxious. This is accompanied by sleeplessness. What should I do?
You know, a sense of loss is so personal that nothing can actually substitute it. We've all been through it. If you lose a pet, if you lose a loved one, especially in seniors, I think one of the biggest shocks, if I may use that word, emotional shocks, is losing a partner. You know, somebody who you lived with for so many years, whom you've fought with, loved, all of that, you know, and suddenly the person is not around. It's a huge loss. So no kind of medication, nothing can actually substitute that loss. You got to occupy your mind. You got to make sure that you are usefully occupied, you know, giving back to society, because it gives you a sense of purpose, fulfillment, you know, and fills that absence, that big hole that you have in the heart. Having said that, there's a very good homeopathic medicine called Ignatia, which is actually very, very good for emotional shocks. So in case if you're grieving from the loss of a loved one, and if it is recent, then you should take Ignatia. If it's old, supposing it happened a few years ago and you still haven't got over it, you know, my mother died 5 years ago, but I'm still not the same person that I was when she was around. I haven't got over it. Then I would take a medicine called Natramur. So if it's recent, Ignatia. If it's long-term, Natramur. But yes, you can be helped. And there is hope.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. There is a question from Ahmad Miran. Is there any medicine for itching that arises after having certain foods like brinjal and some snacks?
So, you know, the first thing is that it's a very complicated answer really, but, you know, probably a lot of us have a lot of food allergies. So the first thing to do is actually test it. What are you allergic to? Because it's very, very easy sometimes to just have an elimination diet. You know, if you're allergic to brinjal, just don't eat brinjal. It's easy. Of course, you can actually take specific medicine homeopathy to build up immunity against a specific, any part that you're allergic to. I mean, any food that you're allergic to. So there are general allergies to build up immunity, you know, against general allergies in homeopathy. And then there are specific, also specific medicines to take for specific allergies. You know, so if you're allergic to strawberries, you can have a medicine X. If you're, for example, allergic to alcohol, you can have another medicine. I'm not, you know, propagating it at all, but I'm just saying that this is possible. So, but the best way to deal with it, that, you know, first find out what you're allergic to and do it in a scientific manner. So today there are a lot of, I mean, our clinics have got as well a kind of a test that comes from England, and you just have to give one blood, just like a, you know, one drop of blood, and then within 20 minutes you get to know what are the kind of food allergies that you have, you know. And so it's very easy then to plan your treatment accordingly. A, one, by elimination for some time, and B, by actually specifically giving you medicines to build immunity against it.
Right. Doctor, there is a question that has come in are there any medicines for liver fibrosis and cirrhosis reversal?
Unfortunately, no, because liver is a very, very silent sufferer. And when it starts screaming, then things really go very bad. So, and you know, it's responsible for so many functions of the human body. We don't realize it. So yes, there are liver remedies, but to kind of reverse cirrhosis, I'm not sure.
Right. Thank you. There's a question from Mr. Anil Chopra. He's not mentioned his age, but any remedy for knee pain to avoid knee replacement? In my case, I walk, cycle, yoga. How will homeopathy help?
Yeah, so it helps. Basically, there are only two problems with knees, really. I mean, or with joints. So, you know, one is pain and the other is movement. So homeopathy helps with both. So simple medicine like Rustrox, for example, can help you to relieve you from pain, as well as, you know, free your movements as well. So if things are okay and you can carry on doing your normal day-to-day work, and, you know, it's just about carrying on your lifestyle and not getting incapacitated in any way, you then don't need to go for a surgery. If your lifestyle is actually being incapacitated and, you know, you just can't move around and nothing is working for you, and certainly you don't want to take painkillers all your life or any kind of treatment all your life, then maybe surgery is not a bad option.
Right. There is a question from somebody, from Mr. Vivekanand Sinha, says he's 70. Any medicines for stiffness and spasticity in the lumbar region?
Yes, again, I'm saying Rustox is a very good medicine, which is, used for joints and also for, stiffness. It will help.
There's a question from Mr. Shrikant Kulkarni, who says he is 70 years old. Is there any homeopathic medicine cure for aortic regurgitation?
Again, that's a structural problem. So when there's a structural problem, then, medicine cannot help. It's like saying that if you have a decayed tooth, then you have to get it out. You have to go to a dentist. So, dentistry, surgery, gynec is not the preview of just allopathy. It's kind of an allied science, which has been taken into the medical field. So if something is purely surgical, you have to do surgery. But there are lots of optional surgical cases. Like, for example, tonsillitis. You don't always need to get your tonsils out. You don't always need to get your kidney stone out. So there are lots of, urinary bladder stones, lots of things, warts, for example. So they can be treated through homeopathy. You don't need to be operated. But when you have a structural problem, and it is right from childhood, probably, then the answer really is only surgery. There's no medicine that can help you.
Doctor, one last question. We have got so many questions still, but I'm going to just ask one question, which perhaps also applies to various others. This is from Mr. Pramod. I feel I'm forgetting things and my memory is not like before. I'm 80. I used to be an accountant, so my brain is still sharp. And I also do Sudoku and crosswords every day without fail. Is there a cure to make my memory stronger?
A cure is not really a good word, because everything about life is finite. Nothing is infinite. And, cure kind of says that, nothing will ever happen to me ever. The human body is not like that. It's all depends on, it's a mechanized world and it's a mechanized body. So somewhere that mechanics will fail with age. So I think we have to accept also that certain things are not the same as we were younger, but there are certain exercises that you can do and certain treatments that can keep you young. That's for sure. So how quickly do you age and how well do you age? These are the two questions that I can, actually answer through medicine. So number one is, yes, if you keep your mind intellectually stimulated, the chances of this thing is of your getting any kind of brain fog or brain fag, as we call it, are much lesser. Number two is if you live life with a purpose. Kisi ki muskuraaton pe ho nisar. Right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Doctor, I'm sorry to ask you,
if you do that, so I'm saying if you do that, then, and then there's this homeopathic medicine called Awareness sativa, which will help you as well to improve your cognitive powers. Sorry, over to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to ask you the last question, but there are 3-4 questions that have come in, which I think are, which are, one is there any advice for people having acidity, hypertension, blood pressure, and gallbladder stones?
I mean, all in one or different people?
There are 3 different people who have asked questions, so they're similar. So
okay, so gallbladder stone again is a surgical problem. Again, it depends on the size of the stone, depends on how much problem it's causing. You can block something and suddenly you can get jaundice, which can be critical. But if you have time and over a period of time and the stones are small, they can be dissolved through homeopathic medicine. So that's the answer to that. As far as stomach problems are concerned, it is said that the gut or the stomach is the sounding board of human emotions. And so a lot of the problems that we get, which are stomach problems, are actually reflected as emotional problems. They're emotional problems reflected as stomach problems. So for example, we all know a condition called irritable bowel syndrome. So, we have to go to the toilet more often. We see that the toilets are always full before an interview or before an exam. Everybody rushes before a flight to go to a bathroom, not necessarily because they don't want to use the toilet in the aircraft, but also because they're anxious. So anxiety and stomach are very closely related, and which is why treatment through homeopathy, which is a holistic treatment, is very useful.
Right. And blood pressure, is there something for blood pressure?
So blood pressure, again, it depends, because there's essential hypertension and there's secondary hypertension. So essential hypertension is probably in families, and there's something wrong there, which is not easy to treat. So you can just control it with allopathic medicine. And the other is secondary, which is actually because of some other cause, like it's because your kidneys are not proper, So if you can actually make your kidneys function proper, then your blood pressure is okay. Or it's because of anxiety, which can easily be treated with homeopathic medicine. So if you're anxious and your blood pressure is high, like the white coat hypertension we spoke of, I mean, it can be treated.
Right. One last question, doctor. This is an interesting observation. This is from Shankar Chavan, who's 82. He says homeopathy treatment takes a long time. By the time one gets cured, one doesn't even know whether you got cured by the homeopathic treatment or it happened psychologically. What is your comment on that?
So this reminds me of a interesting joke about medicine. They say that it takes 7 days to treat a cold and a week without it, with medicine, and a week without it. So like I said, everything in life is relative, but there's clinical evidence to prove that homeopathy actually works, and every kind of treatment, every kind of problem actually have a lifespan. So for example, according to World Health Organization, again, if you do not get a relapse of psoriasis for 5 years, you're considered cured. So now there's a 5-year period which you have to observe a patient. So like that, there is for every disease, there's some kind of a time span which is there. So homeopathy treatment is well within this time span. What you're talking about is really chronic problems which are within that time frame, which is clinically justifiable according to medical knowledge, and homeopathy fits that. So it's not that you're prolonging a treatment, you're just taking it lifelong. But let me give you another example. For example, if you're a diabetic or a hypertensive, you're taking medicine lifelong, you're taking it for the rest of your life. You're taking it really to your grave all the way through. So there are diseases which take a long time. The problem is that because homeopathic problems you're treating from the root, you're treating it right from the cause of it, which is why it takes time, versus a suppression, which is very superficial. You have a skin problem, you put an ointment, it disappears. You stop using the ointment, it comes back again. So that's not a cure. It's just a suppression for the time being. So if you're able to distinguish between the two, you will understand that homeopathy actually has very, very good merits in the treatment of what are called NCDs, which is today the raging problem of the world, which are non-communicable diseases. So lifestyle diseases is where homeopathy really, really does very well. And ultimately, just in a lighter vein, to close, I would always say that, this little thing that I say, that whether it is allopathy, homeopathy, or Tirupati, I mean, whatever works for you, please try
it. Doctor, you have put it so interestingly. Let me put it that way. We have received so many questions. There are over 20 questions that have not been addressed so far, but we're short of time. The last time around when we had you on August 29, 2020, I can promise that I'm going to invite you not after 2 years, but much before that, because just that there are so many questions that people want answers to, and thank you very much for being here. We are going to have a session next week again on September 3rd, and that's on rehab medicine. We've got a senior doctor taking that session. Greetings for Ganesh Chaturthi, the festival season that starts next week, and to all of you, have a great festive season ahead. I must stop you. Sorry, we have to leave on a note, and I know I'm not giving you advanced information about this, advanced warning for this. But is there a song that kind of that comes in your mind spontaneously that you would like to end it with?
किसी की मुस्कुराहटों पे हो निसार, किसी का दर्द मिल सके तो ले उधार, किसी के वास्ते हो तेरे दिल में प्यार, जीना इसी का नाम है, जीना इसी का नाम है, जीना इसी का नाम है. So reach out to everybody, reach out, help out everybody around you, and when you live life with a purpose, you will always live it well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you for all the information and some entertainment as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.